The tariff wars continue. Trump is going to tariff us. We're going to tariff him. And Mexico apparently is in a full-on siesta. A recent report from a commission in Alberta proves what we've known since 2020. All the COVID measures, all of them, every single one, are complete trash. That's it. Doug Ford has also called an election, he says, to deal with Trump and the tariffs, the big boogeyman, big orange boogeyman and his tariffs. Now, we have our own economic problems in Canada, so the tariffs and Donald Trump are actually the least of our worries. So what's the takeaway from today, or what are the takeaways from today? Well, first of all of our elected officials are slimy and greedy, and we can't trust a single one of them. It's January 30th. I'm Andrew DeBartolo. That's Matt Hallick. This is Liberty Dispatch.
Hey, and welcome back to Liberty Dispatch. It's good to be with you. As always, we are here to bring you conservative Canadian news and analysis from an unapologetically Christian perspective. Make sure that wherever you're getting our content from, if you like what we do, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe notification bell, smash that thing. Whatever you have to do to stay up to date with us, please make sure you do it so you can get all our news and analysis. And be sure, if you have not, definitely go over and subscribe to ldcanada.substack.com. Subscribe to our Substack. That's ldcanada.substack.com. You can get everything that we do over there. So you're definitely not going to want to sleep on subscribing to us over at Substack, which, by the way, is a great platform. I'm excited that we ended up going with it, Andrew, because it has been really good for streamlining a bunch of our stuff. So we like it. We hope you guys will like it too, and we hope you'll join us over there on Substack.
Yeah, so a couple just very quick housekeeping things before we move on. The only way to join our email list is to subscribe to our Substack. By subscribing to our Substack, you get on our email list. So any new episodes, any new content, any new announcements, that's how you're going to find out about it, number one. Number two, if you've noticed this week, we had our first episode again. We're doing the news brief again. And the news brief, the design will be Monday morning, 10 to 15 or so minutes. As you're driving into work, it's going to help you get caught up to date with all the news. So the plan is to do that. We're also doing written content. So I'm writing articles once a week for the Substack. So that's all stuff we're doing that's new and different above and beyond what we've already been doing. Mm-hmm. We also plan on this week recording a few interviews that we will be releasing over the course of the next little bit. And Matt and I are going to be doing interviews regularly, and we're going to be releasing them regularly. So our plan is to release maybe the first one or two for everyone, just to get a sense of what they're going to be like and the content we're going to do. But our plan is to put the interviews behind a paid subscriber paywall. So if you already are a paid subscriber to our Substack, congratulations. You're going to be getting all those interviews for free or what you pay as they come out. But moving forward, after we drop the first two, if you want to have access to those videos, to those interviews, and they're going to be good ones, you're going to want to make sure you become a paid subscriber through Substack. And all the stuff we're currently doing, we're going to keep doing that for free. The articles, the news brief, the regular episode, none of that's going to change. But the more content we add, the more work we put into it, the more we want to incentivize people saying, hey, this is worthwhile. I want to support what you're doing, because it takes time. It takes time.
Yeah, exactly.
Effort, takes energy to do all this stuff.
Yeah, and dependent on the interview, we might have portions up for clips and stuff that you can catch, but the full-length interviews, potentially even with questions in the future from you guys asked to various guests, we're hoping the more you support us, the more we can do. It is reciprocal in that sense, and Substack's really great, Andrew, because it does, I think, in a better way allow us to create and curate news specifically for those on our email list. So that's something that we can help you guys with, is we can curate some really important news stories put them in front of you. So every week, even throughout the week, if some really important news comes up, if you subscribe to us, we'll get you that news, and then you can stay up to date with everything we're doing, but also obviously with everything that's going on in our country, because it's a wild and woolly time out there, Andrew. Man,
there's a lot going on. We got a lot to get into. We have some clips we want to respond to, an interesting podcast that we want to respond to as well. But before we do that, we have to talk about a new sponsor for the show, and that is PLEXUS. So the Lord has put our bodies together to be able to restore themselves naturally when we fuel them with the proper nutrients and get rid of toxins. PLEXUS is a gut health supplement company that helps to restore diminished nutrients and rids our bodies of the toxins, yeast, and inflammation that create havoc. Unbalanced blood sugar levels, inflammation, and poor gut health lie at the root of the vast majority of our health problems. By addressing these three root issues, PLEXUS helps to get our bodies back to the way they were designed to function. My family, actually personally, has been using PLEXUS products for several years, and we've actually seen a tangible difference in being able to keep up with all the demands of a busy household, including the two recent additions in the last year. And we've seen many of these health concerns actually diminish in several of our family members. So if you're looking to feel better and restore your gut health, you can email healthandliberty@proton.me. So that's health and liberty, all one word, at proton.me. And you can actually get hooked up with a discount today when you do that.
Man, I'm super stoked for them coming on as a sponsor, because my gut health is terrible. I know it for a fact. So I'm looking forward to
I don't want to say something, Matt, but
yeah, no, it's not good. It's not good, man. I definitely feel like an old guy. Well, I like spicy food, but it doesn't like me anymore. So
I'll share just a little tidbit of testimonial, right, about this. So one of our kids in particular has a problem with regulation, energy, being overstimulated, and there's certain nutrients that are lacking that can help to deal with that. So since he's been on the probiotic, the omega-3, some of the stuff we have him on, there has been a significant difference in his energy levels, in his behavior, and his ability to regulate. Like, we've seen a significant difference in him, and we notice the difference if, for whatever reason, a few days are skipped or something happens and we forget. We can see the difference. So there's a real tangible difference that we've actually seen in our family, and so I am quite happy to have them as a sponsor for the show. So again, that is health and liberty at proton.me.
Well, we got news,
it's all
Andrew.
about
we got news.
It's the Tariff Wars. I almost put together a Star Wars graphic. The scrolling things. I might actually do that. Well, I might do that and put it out on social media. But
yes,
this is what it comes down to: a 25% tariff on Canadian goods going into the U.S. is the reality is that Trump could maybe back out, some deal could be struck, but the reality is it's just a few days away before we see this 25% tariff coming into effect. So we have to talk about their impact. Obviously, I'm friends with people who own businesses across the country, and they have something to say about how they perceive that these tariffs will affect their businesses. So we have to talk about that. But there's another conversation we have to have, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. And the conversation is regarding, is this just about the imposition of tariffs, or is there something else going on? Is there something else that Donald Trump is seeking to accomplish? And this is not us dwelling in the outer space tinfoil realm. This is us dealing with what he has said, the financial advisors around him, and the fact that this actually isn't an original play for the United States. This has happened before, and with the same kind of language that they're using nowadays. But before we get into that kind of more nuanced deep discussion, we want to look at how key figures in Canada have been responding to the tariffs. Really, two key figures: the current interim pseudo kind of but not really prime tyrant Justin Trudeau, and then the almost certainly soon to be Prime Minister Pierre Devil in a Blue Dress Poilievre. And as we always warn whenever we play video clips specifically of Justin Trudeau, please,
Get
for
your
your safety, for the safety of those around you, pull over the vehicle if you're driving. If you need a helmet, if you're prone to seizures, then do whatever, bite down on the cork. Don't operate heavy machinery. Sit down. Whatever you need to do to not hurt people around you, take those measures now. You've been forewarned.
President Trump also repeated his concerns about the border. While less than 1% of fentanyl and illegal immigrants that enter the United States come from Canada, our government has already acted to address the concerns raised by the President about border security with an over $1 billion comprehensive border plan. We're already working collaboratively to keep our citizens safe on both sides of the border. Of course, if the President does choose to proceed with tariffs on Canada, Canada will respond. And everything is on the table.
Flashbacks
in unison with Team
Everything's
Canada,
on the table. I remember
as Team
COVID.
Canada, with business leaders, organized labor, civil society, Indigenous leaders, and premiers from coast to coast to coast.
He looks like a dork.
We're prepared for every possible scenario. In fact, just last night, I spoke to Premier Ford in his capacity as chair of the Council of the Federation, and he reiterated his unwavering commitment on behalf of Canadian premiers to working all together. This is an important and challenging moment for Canada and for Canadians. And we know there will be many such moments.
And his affect
Through
is
all of
so
it,
old
I want to
now.
be clear that we have Canadians' backs.
Lies.
We heard the President's comments yesterday and the directive he has issued to examine the trade relationship between Canada and the United States.
Before we get too far afield, I just have to stop it there. We have Canadians' backs. Let's just take a step back, Andrew, and assess how the Liberal government has had our backs. Knowing that the threat of tariffs is looming over Canadian businesses, knowing the damage that this possibly can have on the Canadian economy, given that so much of Canada's economy, which is severely struggling at this moment, is dependent on exports to our friends to the south. He decided, because of internal party politics, he was going to prorogue the government, that he was going to stop the official debates, the democratic aspect of our government. He was going to prorogue it so his just inept, corrupt, idiotic party can go out and find another globalist shill to lead them. That's how they have our backs at the most desperate of times.
I think he misspoke. I think what he meant to say was, we have Canadians bent over a barrel by the backside. I think that's what he meant.
Yeah. Or
actually,
we stabbed you in the back.
Yeah, that's
well,
right. We have
either of
have
those.
Canadians. No, we have them in the back, as in we have their backs because our knives. Yeah, that's probably
are deep.
I think that's what
deep
he meant
between their shoulder blades.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
okay.
Well done, prime feminist.
Man, it's amazing. 2 minutes of him, and I'm so nauseated. It's hard to stomach.
States,
I told you to
explore the possibility
of
tariffs, but we remain confident in the facts. Canadian energy powers American manufacturing, businesses, and homes. Of America's top 5 trading partners, Canada is the only one with whom the United States runs a trade surplus in manufacturing. And Canada buys more goods made by Americans than China, Japan, and Germany combined. On top of that, President Trump said that he wants to usher in a golden age for the United States. That will require more steel and aluminum, more critical minerals, more reliable and affordable energy, more of everything to run the U.S. economy full steam ahead. Canada has all those resources, and we stand at the ready to work with the United States to create a booming and secure North American economy. The alternative for them would be more resources from Russia, China, or Venezuela. Canada is a safe, secure, and reliable partner in an uncertain world. President Trump also...
So there you have it. There's our prime tyrant, Justin Trudeau. And he's obviously saying that if the golden age of American politics, like Donald Trump's predicting, is going to be ushered in, they're going to need Canadian goods to do it. And that's where...
I don't think so.
Well,
I think, and this is where obviously people are going to disagree, and I might take some heat for this. But at the end of the day, if we simply look at what Trump has been doing in his first week, if you look at the amount of money that he has already slashed, the spending that he has cut, the promises that he has made, that they will unlock even greater amounts of their own resources and energy reserves. I don't know if they need us the way that Justin Trudeau says they need us. I don't think that's the case. I think that I think there's enough in there, and with the right regulations cut, with what appears to be happening, I think that Justin Trudeau is thinking that the United States needs us the same way we need people, because we're crippling our economy because of green cult alarmism. But if they continue to move in the other direction, then they're actually, I don't think they're not really going to need us all that much.
No, and I think that's the exceedingly important point that we have to understand here. Is the reality is that there was a managed and planned decline under the Biden regime, that so many of the critical minerals and infrastructure that Justin Trudeau's talking about, the capacity exists within the United States, right? They were energy independent.
Wasn't the first thing Biden's first day in office? He's like, let's cut off the Keystone Pipeline thing.
Yes, which would have benefited Canada too. We didn't hear tariff wars or anything at that point, right? Because that fits within the Green New Agenda. But what we have to understand is a lot of those minerals, right? When he's saying, oh, the only alternative is to go to bad actors on the world stage, what he's actually not thinking is that it's actually America that has so much of that infrastructure, so much of those important minerals. And if they get rid of the regulations, they can drastically increase production. Now, we'll see how quickly they can do that. That's always the challenge. But that is certainly what Donald Trump is thinking. That's where he's coming from on this issue.
So we're gonna watch a video now of someone who I have been told is the antithesis to Justin Trudeau. I've been told that this person, that everything that Justin Trudeau has done or said or proposed is garbage and needs to be rejected. That's what I have been told that this person's position is, that everything that Trudeau has done is bad. So it's shocking, not really, because I'm not a blue shill, but it's shocking for people to hear that what we're about to listen to kind of sounds the same as what we just heard. Kind of sounds the same.
We are a week away now from American tariffs with almost all certainty. There's a real concern, I'm sure you've heard it in this region, about the potential impacts. I'm wondering if you can tell our viewers one specific thing, if you were in power, that you would do to respond to those.
Well, I don't want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to list a few things. One would obviously...
The more you want to list, the better. I
think
people would like to get some specifics about how we're going to tackle this.
Look, President Trump is a deal maker. He wants to win. But we're both going to lose as Americans and Canadians if we get into a trade war. So what I would say is, how do we position the decision for him so that he understands that America can only win if it allows open, unbridled free trade with Canada? So I would retaliate, and I would target products and services that, A, we don't need, B, we can make ourselves, and C, that we can buy elsewhere so that we maximize impact on the Americans while minimizing impact on Canadians. Secondly, I would pass an emergency, bring it home tax cut on work, investment, making stuff in Canada, energy, home building, so that we can stimulate more economic growth here. Three, we need to become more self-sufficient. That means knocking down barriers, more interprovincial free trade. We have freer trade with the Americans today than we do with ourselves. We have to knock down those barriers, build pipelines, LNG liquefaction facilities to sell our stuff to the world without having to go through the Americans. If they're going to be an unreliable trade partner, we've got to find ways to sell more to ourselves and more to the rest of the world.
Do you see it as a dollar-for-dollar retaliation?
I would say so, yeah. It has to hit hard. And again, we have to be very pinpoint and surgical to make sure we're maximizing impact on the American side while minimizing impact on our side.
You talk about self-reliance. Have successive governments in Canada over the decades of all stripes become too reliant, too comfortable with the notion that U.S. will always be our biggest trade partner, and they're always right there, and we can put it on autopilot?
Yes, and we live next door to the biggest military and economic superpower the world has ever seen. So a lot of our economics have just been based on enjoying, basking in that glow, but we can't rely on it. And so, right now, according to Stats Can, we have about a 7% effective tariff on goods between provinces. And we remember the Como decision. Some poor guy got fined because he brought alcohol from
Northern New Brunswick.
Yes, I think he was from Northern New Brunswick to Quebec. And we got to knock down those barriers. We have to approve resource projects that allow us to get our stuff to market without going through the states. Right now, we are importing oil from the Americans and the Saudis in the east at world prices, and we're selling it to the Americans at discounts in the west. It's a crazy business model. We need pipelines, we need LNG plants, we need to approve resource projects quickly so that we can become self-reliant and start making things here in Canada.
So a very realistic, obviously, standpoint, and what you hear is, a much more, laid out, well thought out plan on just how Canadians can actually become more self-reliant as an economy, which I think is a good thing, regardless of a tariff wars. This is something that Canada needed to be doing yesterday, because the problem is when we talk about all the stuff that Pierre just mentioned there, is we're way behind on all that stuff. We were way ahead until Trudeau came into government, and then because he's an insane Marxist Green New Deal guy, his government has done everything they can to set Canada back, especially as it pertains to energy. And our taxes in Canada are so bad. It's so expensive to do anything in Canada, ship anything. The amount of surcharges, that fuel surcharges on shipping, even within provinces, it's crazy. Canada is terrible for the economy because we have insane amounts of government interference, and the reality, Andrew, is this is asymmetric warfare. Is our market is so much smaller than the United States of America. And if what Donald Trump is trying to do in this moment is trying to force American consumers and American businesses to reinvest in American manufacturing and bring things home to America, which I have no doubt is in the back of his minds on tariffs, this is a great way to do it. And the thing is, the world wants the American market because it's the most it's the richest, it's the biggest as far as like financial, maybe not like populous, but financial market, and it's one of the biggest populations in the world. It's not really close. And what Donald Trump is doing is he knows he's the heavyweight fighter and he's throwing around his weight. Now, we'll see how that all plays out. But I wanted to point this out because I think it illustrates just how dangerous in this moment a trade war with the United States of America is for Canada. Because this graph, Andrew, says a lot. So this is real GDP per capita in the G7 countries. And you can see on this graph that Canada's real GDP is it's the lowest out of all of these G7 nations now, and it's trending so far down it's actually breaking away from the pack. So realistically, what this graph is showing you is Canada right at this moment is essentially in a period of stagflation. We are in a recession with runaway inflation, which was again today, Andrew. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Bank of Canada reduced the interest rates again because they're so concerned that the fact that they haven't been able to destroy inflation and the economy in Canada is running so slow. Now you'll see who's by far the best nation as far as GDP in the G7. It's not even close.
It's the country that if you listen to Trudeau and Poilievre, who again had very similar talking points, it's we do for them, they do for us. It's like a kind of even Steven thing. I'm like, they're making it seem like, hey, we give stuff to them and they give stuff to us, and it's kind of a neat relationship. And last time I checked, I don't know how many Canadian-dominated companies are owning market share of anything in the United States. But I can tell you, here in Canada, there's a good chance that most of the things that own market share in any industry, if they're not coming from China or Japan because of electronics, it's from the United States. The fact that they're 10 times bigger than us, this is not an even thing. No way. So, we are the small little brother in this relationship.
Yes, and we're picking a fight with bigger brother. Maybe he started it, but you just have to know who's going to end it. And it's very possible. It's much more possible that these tariffs are going to spell a TKO for Canada than America, especially. But
I don't even know who did start it, Matt. And I think we're going to listen to the podcast clip soon. I don't know. I don't know if Big Brother did start it. I think that there's something to be said about, Big Brother, who doesn't have any, like the United States. They are not desperately in need of trade relationships with us and with other European countries, that they essentially willingly provide military protection for all of us. I mean, the reason why we've enjoyed a lot of the peace and that we have is because of the protection that Big Brother provides. So it's
we're living in the period of Pax Americana, right? Yeah, that's what a lot of historians have called it.
It's one thing to say, hey, Big Brother provides this, and we are grateful and we express our gratitude for it. And, we just kind of bristle against one another. But it's another thing to, enjoy the benefit of that protection, enjoy the benefit of that economy, enjoy the benefit of that manufacturing power, enjoy the benefit of all of the advancements in technology and medicine that come from the United States, right? All the best anything comes from there, the best doctors, it all comes from there. So we enjoy that. And then our response is, well, we're going to, not be grateful, and we're also going to not do our share. We're not going to, if we're going to make agreements to contributing money to certain organizations, we're not going to do our share because you're Big Brother. You got a lot of money. You take care of it. You pay them. You're the rich older brother, so you keep paying the bill when we go out to dinner. We're not going to.
No.
We're poor. So if you keep doing that over and over again, then there's something to be said about Big Brother saying, well, you know what, this is not right. We're doing
I think it's even worse than that, though, isn't it, Andrew? Isn't it worse than that? Because I think a lot of Canadians thumb up our nose against Americans.
Oh, yeah.
We think we're the more sophisticated.
We pride ourselves.
We identify as not being American. Meanwhile, most Americans don't ever think of Canada, right? Like, we pride ourselves in being pompous towards the very nation that helps us thrive and obviously be peaceful. We're living under that Pax Americana, and you're right, we aren't very grateful. But before we get into this podcast club, which is really important, these are really good. We want to get there because I think it's a great analysis. There's an asymmetry in the regimes as well, and I think this is perfectly indicated by this photo, Andrew. This is our right honorable drama teacher, who because of the tariffs held an emergency whatever committee meeting, and he showed up in his civvies, but during his reporter scrum afterwards, he obviously put his sweater on backwards. So
yeah, Cat Canada was saying that on social media. His sweater. And I saw a picture as well recently of him and Mark Carney and someone else all in gray sweaters, and like, what's the significance of the gray sweaters and the Liberal leaders? But yeah, that's the background. That's our guy.
Yeah, no, exactly. And meanwhile, the Donald Trump administration is firing on absolutely all cylinders. They are totally ruthless right now. So I think when we're thinking about the tariff wars, we just have to understand the asymmetry of the warfare here. We have Big Brother firing on all cylinders. Pardon?
I don't think we really have bargaining power here with the United States. Our dollar is doing much worse than theirs. I don't think we are in a position. I mean, I'm not because we have done such a terrible job at unlocking our own natural resources, our own sources of energy, because we are crippled by bureaucracies. So we have put ourselves in this position. Now, if we'd not been in this position, then we could probably say the United States, fine, we're a big country, rich in minerals and natural resources, and we're going to be able to take care of ourselves, and we're going to trade with other people, whatever. We don't have to, that's fine. But we're not in that position. So unless we're going to climb ourselves out of that position, which, I mean, I don't know what it's going to take to, or the amount of time it's going to take to do that. At the end of the day, like, I am not just take it kind of guy. But given the situation, if Donald Trump, and this is one thing that Pierre said that I agree with, and I would park here. I would sit down with Donald Trump and I would say, okay, what do we have to do so this doesn't happen? And as far as I'm concerned, the only Canadian leader who's had that is Danielle Smith. And my guess would be that I could see a situation where Trump goes hard on the rest of Canada, but maybe eases up on Alberta a little bit. She was the only one down there for his inauguration, and she had multiple meetings with him. So no other Canadian leader has called him up and said, President Trump, we appreciate, the mutual relationship and benefiting from you and what it means to be close allies with the United States and being your number one trade partner. What can we do? What agreement can we come to? What would be satisfactory to not let this happen? And some might think, oh, that's spineless and this. No, that's not spineless at all. That's understanding, like you've said, that in this situation, we're not punching down. We need to ask what can we do so that this doesn't have to happen. And I think we need to be a little more open-handed about it and not now all of a sudden be brave and strong and we're going to tariff them even harder. Like the Doug Ford video we're going to show at the end. I'm like, really? Really? Guy in the mask who did whatever your handlers did during COVID. Now you're going to be all tough? Really? Marching in the sodomy parade with your way too tight blue shirt with the rainbow. Really? Now you're going to be all tough? on the world stage. Anyways,
hey, listen. Yeah. I'm not a huge tariff guy. I'm a big free market Austrian economics guy. Tariffs are not something we want to see, but we definitely understand what Donald Trump is doing and the power that he's trying to leverage in this moment to make America great again. And the fact of the matter is they are the big dogs, whether we like it or not. So that's where having some diplomacy would go a long way.
Because Donald Trump is running the risk. The reality is, by doing this, Canada and Mexico could say, fine, we're not going to trade with you. So, I mean, at the end of the day, Trump is either going to, if we call his bluff, let's say Canada and Mexico calls his bluff, I don't know if he would say, okay, I didn't mean it, guys, sorry, he might stick to this one way or another.
Yeah. So, and he's the interesting part too, right? And this is actually where, so as a free market guy, the only way that tariffs make sense, because they're essentially a tax on the consumer of that nation, right? The only way that it kind of makes sense is under, a similar situation like the Gilded Age, under McKinley, when we're talking about a period where you don't have an income tax, which is actually an idea Donald Trump put forward. So I'm not for tariffs, but if it's instead of income taxes, which it would be a drastic diminishment on taxation, then that's where it's very, very interesting. And it's not direct taxation on the people in that sense. So very interesting, Andrew. And I think it does put us in a position where we have to go hand in hand.
If you had to choose between the two, I think it's better to say take less money from the citizens, give them more of their money to spend, but maybe the cost of things up 100%. On the other end, because then at least you allow them the freedom to do what they want with their money. So
yeah, and it would be goods not made in the U.S. essentially, right? Exactly. That would go up, not actually homegrown. So yeah, I think if that's his plan, that is a very good plan, and I think that would be a much preferable situation. But
even though we would
Canada's having those discussions.
Yeah, even though we would suffer from it. And this is where I think people who are objective and honest need to say, I'm a Canadian citizen. I've lived in Canada my whole life. This is where I buy things. This is where I work. Obviously, I want to see the success and flourishing of our country across many spheres. But I completely understand Donald Trump's decision. And even though I and people I know and care about, including business owners, will probably suffer as a result of the tariffs, I actually can't really be upset at him. And I can't say, oh, how dare you? Because his job is not to take care of Canada. His job is to do what's best for his citizens. And because I'm a nationalist, and because I believe that you should care for the needs of and the well-being of those within your nation, if this is the decision that he's going to make, running the risk that people will say we won't trade, then I kind of have to say, if it's good for America, and that's what he's doing, he doesn't have to abide by.
That's his responsibility. Yeah,
that's it. This is his job.
Especially
for America, of course, do it if that's what you think is going to be best. Yeah,
especially
even though it's going to hurt us.
Yeah, especially since the entire world takes kind of the same position like Canada does towards the United States of America, right? Everybody's sneering at the Americans. Yeah, everybody's steering at the Americans, but I mean, I showed you that chart of the G7. Those are supposedly the greatest countries in the world with the greatest economies. And the only nation who's actually now competing with America, believe it or not, is Italy. And that's after they put Giorgia Meloni in charge, right? So Italy's economy was garbage until she came about. So it just shows you what good nationalistic government can look like and the results it can have. But Andrew, we have this podcast that
so someone sent this to me, and Brian Lilly, who contributes to the Toronto Sun, he does good work there. he had this podcast. His podcast is called Full Comment, and he had two economists on, and the whole point of the podcast was, is there something going on that's more than just tariffs for the sake of tariffs, and it's actually more than about the United States and their relationship with Canada and Mexico? Is there actually something else that Donald Trump and the United States government is wanting to accomplish by these tariffs? Is there a bigger thing at play? And so they fleshed this out in the podcast. So we have 3 shorter clips. I mean, I would recommend listening to the whole thing. It's quite interesting. We have 3 short
in the description,
because we want to think about, is this more than just about, like Doug Ford would say, oh, Trump just likes tariffs. I don't think that's it. And so I think this is something worth exploring.
Look, as I said, tariffs are a major threat to the Canadian economy, but I think that too many people in Canada, politicians or commentators, are missing the fact that Trump's looking at doing much more than just bringing in tariffs. He's looking at fundamental changes to the American economy and how global trade operates. And I think that is as big a threat as the tariffs.
First off, I agree with what you said. About 5 days ago, I tripped across or fell across the paper by Stephen Marin, PhD economics, Harvard University, with Hudson Bay Capital Group for many years, and
now on Trump's Council of Economic Advisors.
And now the chief economist to the White House, essentially. That's what the Council of Economic Advisors was, the agency set up by Richard Nixon many years ago. This 41-page paper, when I read it, I mean, it just hit me right away. I didn't have to get to the end of the paper. By probably the end of the first page, I realized what they are proposing, and it's crystal clear. This isn't my interpretation or my opinion. It is very clear that they see the entire 1945 to present post-World War II architecture that includes UN, IMF, World Bank. It is absolutely clear, with absolutely zero ambiguity, that President Trump and his people around him see this as a failed system that has caused great damage and harm to the United States over many, many years. And the tariffs are merely one tool in a whole quiver or arsenal of tools designed to completely redesign the international economic trading currency regime system.
So they're going after the post-war consensus. Rightfully understood. Rightfully understood.
I knew it. Well, this is the reality is everything about the post-war consensus that. So I also look at globalism. I look at this idea of these international unions of a heavy state of this idea of national identity and religious community values. That led to the problems of World War II. So I would agree those realities that came out of World War II, the League of Nations, the United Nations, the WHO, all of these things
all bad.
are bad.
All bad.
They're all bad.
all bad.
All bad.
Yeah.
Gotta go. So I mean, in a sense, hey, congratulations, Donald Trump and the United States government. You've kind of stumbled upon something that has been true for almost 100 years, that globalism is bad and does bad things. But what they're so the paper, by the way, I should try to find, someone actually sent me a link to the paper as well. But the paper in question was written by someone who's now the primary financial advisor to the White House. And in the paper, what they're suggesting is the globalist apparatus coming out of the post-World War II that led to these organizations we've mentioned, that it's very, very bad and it needs to be undone. So that, which, yes, agree. Yeah. Good. Yeah. That's all good. Yeah. If that's the foundation of what he's doing, then that's a good thing.
Well, especially given the fact that, when we're talking about, kind of McKinley's policies, how the Americans took the front step of basically rebuilding Europe after 2 world wars, because they came out as the clear favorites economically after the 2 world wars. And they did that as a way to gain access and influence in countries all across the world. but to what end is the question, right? It created a resentment, not a thankfulness, as we've talked about. It created a resentment in all these nations, and at the end of the day, a lot of American wealth has been transferred to other parts of the world with very little oversight, with very little coming back in the way of benefit to Americans. And in fact, a lot of this economic interventionism from the American government all across the world has done what it always does, which is lead to military intervention, right? Mercantilism. A lot of the wars between nations were started, especially around the time of the founding of the United States of America and Canada, because of a mercantilist system, very protectionistic kind of economic policies. So the worry too is the more government intervention you have in the economy, the more likely that is. And unfortunately, that's where tariffs can also be a bad thing too. So I want to say, let's get the government out of picking economic winners and losers. Let's get the central banks out of here. Let's go back to an actual free market system. But I guess in the absence of that, what we're seeing is at least America under this new Trump regime withdraw their support and assent for this so-called post-war consensus. And I don't think people are ready for what's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's play the second clip. So now they're going to expand on this.
Your statement of what the Trump administration is up to is clear in plain text readings. But it's also not the first time the Americans have done this. When the Americans say they're going to declare tariffs, our response is, okay, what are those jabronis complaining about today? Steel, softwood, aluminum, beef. What is their complaint today? And that was what happened with steel and aluminum.
Those
in 1971, we woke up on a Monday morning in August to discover that Sunday night, the Nixon administration had imposed a 10% surcharge or tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. The language they used to explain why they were doing this is an almost exact replica of what we hear in today. The U.S. is getting ripped off. Foreigners are taking advantage of us. We're losing jobs that should be here in America. Everyone's ganging up on us. The rules are unfair. We didn't sign up for this. And we need to go back and fix this.
I think the argument being made this time is more sophisticated. In the paper, I keep referring to this paper because it's the most coherent and rational and lucid and analytical and scholarly exegesis. In the paper, he explicitly went on for pages about how the Americans have spent literally trillions since 1945, providing the umbrella of security to all the Western nations and friendly countries. And these countries, Canada's not the only one by any means, the Europeans, Japan, South Korea, have all profited immensely from the rule of law as the United States, as the referee, my words, of the international economic system, because all of these other countries have been free riding like crazy on America.
Yeah, and that's just a fact, by the way. I don't think it's very difficult to dispute that the United States, their dollar, which is the world standard, their military, which essentially provides protection for the entire West. This is who they've been. Mm-hmm. And other countries not only have benefited from that, but, and now again, I don't think that we should, I think the UN and all this stuff is garbage. But if you have an agreement, if you have several countries that agree that we will contribute a certain percentage of our GDP minimum to this particular international organization or agenda, and we all agree this is what we're going to contribute. And then the United States contributes double that. And then all the other countries, including us, contribute less than a third of that. And our reason is, well, I mean, we're small and they're so big. You can only do that for so long before they say, this is not fair. We agreed. So we're doing above and beyond what we promised, and you're under delivering on your promises. We're also protecting you. So it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
Yeah.
Which, listen, I think is a totally understandable position.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we didn't even need this discussion. It's a great discussion, but we were right on it, Andrew. But this is the reality of the geopolitical, economic, socio-economic landscape that we have to come to terms and come to grips with. And the insane part of all this is the second that the Americans then, act like they're the big dog, everybody clutches their pearls and calls them bullies and everything while we're, trying to take them out at the knees all the time. So I get where the Americans' complaint is coming from. And I think as Canadians, we have to do a better job of actually understanding some of these things and just not poo-pooing it like the commenter said there, right? So let's play this last clip and then we can move on.
Ian, do you think that our political leaders get the severity of the total threat, both the tariffs and these structural changes Trump wants to make?
No.
I don't think so. I've been reading just about every word, at least that's reported publicly, because I'm not inside any of these circles. I've been reading the comments by Mr. Trudeau and by Chrystia Freeland, and I don't want to turn this into a pure partisan thing against the Liberals in Ottawa. I've been reading the comments by the Premier of Ontario, Premier Ford. And I have seen comments daily saying that to the effect, Trump's a bozo, the people around him are bozos, they don't even understand tariffs, they don't understand the impact, they don't even understand why they're doing it. In fact, Premier Ford said that. And why I was so upset about that isn't because I'm here to defend Donald Trump. That's not my point at all. It just drives me mad. I mean, just absolutely bonkers when our leaders, we give them great privilege, great authority, and we have leaders that don't even understand what's going on in the United States. They haven't even read this paper. They're oblivious to the arguments that are being developed that we've been discussing for the past 10, 15 minutes. There is no indication in anything that Premier Ford has said or that Mr. Trudeau has said or Chrystia Freeland has said that gives any flicker of recognition of what they are even trying to do. In fact, Ford said they don't need, he said that Trump just likes tariffs. He's just doing it because he likes tariffs. They have no understanding he's trying to reform the international system and that they have a very clear vision. Whether it's going to fructify in reality, I don't know, but they're not even aware that this is going on. And so they're willing and risking and threatening a trade war with the world hegemon that is over $25 trillion, and we are about $2.5 trillion, which I just think is madness on steroids, because we will lose.
Amen.
So
a really good commentary. There's some sane people in political analysis in Canada.
Well, check out the link. Listen to the whole thing. It's about an hour. It was a really, really interesting podcast. I really appreciated the perspective. And the economists actually throughout disagree on certain nuances, which was good because I think it gives a good balanced perspective. But this is the long and the short of it. February 1st is when the tariffs are probably most likely going to go in effect. Obviously, Donald Trump's interaction with Canada, Mexico, and the rest of the world will continue to reveal what he's really doing, or if it's as simple as Orange Man like tariff. Probably not, but
no.
We're going to see that play out. Obviously, next week's episode will be after the February 1st day, and so we'll have some updates to go with you. But we wanted to move now because apparently our federal government has a little bit of a bipolar response to the tariffs. On the one hand, they're saying we're going to be super duper tough, and we're going to hit back, tariff for tariff, dollar for dollar. But Matt, what else is our federal government planning on doing if our economy takes a little bit of a hit because of these tariffs? Cutting taxes and reducing bureaucracy and all this, and unlocking our own energy, all this stuff to make our economy stronger. That's what they're planning, right?
Yeah. Not likely, right? And this is why it does matter that we have a lame duck regime in office right now, because Poilievre's view of how he would handle this situation is a lot different than the socialists in charge, right? Because our federal government is responding to this in the exact way that I know everyone listening to this program already knows how they're going to respond, right? How they are going to respond is by Burgo the printer printing money and spending insane amounts of money in order to bail out the Canadian economy, during which we just showed you a stagflationary cycle. They're going to helicopter drop money into the economy. And this comes to us from the CTV News. So they say Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had already signaled that the federal government will step in to support Canadians should the tariffs move ahead. At a caucus retreat last week in Montebello, Quebec, they're still having some retreats. That's good. Trudeau acknowledged that a trade war would negatively impact Canadian consumers. Quote, there will be costs for Canadians if we move forward on tariffs to the United States. And that's why we will be there to support and compensate Canadians and Canadian businesses depending on the response we have, Trudeau said. The sources also say that any aid package does not need to happen on the first day tariffs are imposed and will address economic impacts as they become apparent, which is far too late, probably. The federal government is planning a stimulus package. Of course, the scale of the relief will depend on the scope of the tariff, sources tell CTV News. The sources also say that the aid could reach pandemic level relief. Oh my word. They're going to do it all over again. Oh, what a boondoggle. That will surely destroy our economy. But the response will be contingent on how big Trump's tariffs are. Specific programs also have yet to be designed, according to sources. So, Andrew, inflation's about to get a lot worse. The dollar is about to get a lot worse if Justin Trudeau and his idiot cabinet of stupid modern monetary theorists and Keynesians can get their way, because this is the equivalent of taking gasoline and pouring it on a dumpster fire. That is
a raging flame.
That is what we're dealing with here.
I want to read this. So before we started the episode, I got a message from Alex Klusterman, pastor, Hill City Baptist Church, owner of Resistance Coffee. I got a message from him, and he sent me a message. He said, so I'm going to mention this because I just told him we're in the middle of filming an episode right now. We're talking about it. So I'm going to drop it. So when he listens to this, he'll be excited. So he said,
little Easter egg.
He said, what the heck is going on in Canada? Complete communist takeover. And I said, what specifically are you referring to? I mean, that's a pretty broad statement that covers a lot of what's happening in our decrepit country. And this is what he wrote. He writes back, I don't see any other explanation. So he wrote this back while we were filming. I don't see any other explanation than the fact they actually want tariffs. And now their publicly proposed solution is COVID level money printing. So unnecessarily allowing economy crippling tariffs, plus responding with inflation inducing money printing, plus forced dependence of private businesses on the state equals communist takeover. Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. That's about it. Well done, yeah, Alex. You made it on our show with a good summary of what's actually happening.
What a perfect way to institute the UBI that they've been going for, right? Oh man, yeah. Our economy is so bad. We have to respond. I mean, we're talking pandemic level relief. That's crazy. That was supposed to be once in a lifetime relief. And now, again, guess what? We said it on the program. The COVID pandemic is the thin end of the wedge. This is the playbook that is going to be used over and over and over again. This is the very thing talked about by one Klaus Schwab, that this type of government intervention into the economy has to be the norm, not the exception. The only problem is we've seen the outcome of what the pandemic economic situation created, and now we're about to see
we're not even done, Matt. We're not even done sorting through the rubble yet. I mean, we're not even
close. Not even close.
We're just about to talk about the task force in Alberta, and they released their results just like a week ago. So we're not even we will not sort through the full chaos of the measures and mandates during COVID for at least another couple decades. We're not even done sorting through it yet, and Andrew, so anyways,
Andrew, I think if I can make a suggestion, we should touch on Doug Ford, kind of the Ontario response to tariffs, and then we should do the COVID thing at the back end of the program. That way we can tell YouTube to take a hike, and then we can just continue on with our Rumble supporters, because YouTube still doesn't like when we deal with COVID truths.
This whole little thing we just said, you're only going to see this on Rumble, but even me just mentioning COVID and everything we've just talked about, maybe we'll cut that out entirely for the YouTube thing. So if you're hearing this, congratulations, you're watching us on something other than YouTube.
You're watching us pivot.
Yeah, that's fair. So then with that in mind, if we're talking about finances, if we're talking about economy, we're talking about wealth, then we have to talk about our friends at Rocklinc Investment Partners. So it's a new year, but we still face many of the same issues. The woke agenda is invading every corner of society. If you followed our show for any period of time, you know that big banks care little about your faith and values. Now is the time to invest with conviction. Rocklinc Investment Partners is a Christian-owned firm helping Canadians build portfolios that align with their values and principles. They stand for transparency, accountability, and a conservative worldview, offering investment solutions tailored to your unique needs. Partner with Rocklinc today and see how they can help you wisely manage your family's wealth. Give them a call at 905-631-5462 or email them at info@rocklink.com. And I'll say, after talking about Rocklinc and talking about the economy, and we might go a little bit deeper toward the end, or maybe not, but I'll just say it here, just in terms of how a worldview, a paradigm for thinking about economics. The worst thing that Christians can do right now in the light of this is to say, I'm going to bury it under the ground and hide my money under the mattress. That would be the worst thing you could do right now. Obviously, you need to be wise. You need to be prudent. You need to think about saving. You need to think about caring for your family. Obviously, frugality is good. Wasteful spending is bad. But the worst thing to do right now is to just tuck away and hide and wait for everything to get better. Counterintuitive as it might seem, which often is the case with the kingdom of God, which often is the case that God's operation seems to cut right against the wisdom of the world. What Christians should be doing right now is Christians should be starting businesses. They should be thinking about how they can leverage and use their wealth to build beautiful things and do beautiful things. They need to be taking measured risks. They need to be supporting one another. They need to be creating things. Now is not the time to just hide away and wait for everything to get better. Now is actually the time for Christians to do what Christians have done for thousands of years, which is be at the forefront of building culture and making beautiful things in all of the industries. And what we'll actually see is, I think we'll actually see God's provision and God's blessing if we do it, as opposed to hoarding it and trying to keep us safe from the dangers. We'll actually find we'll suffer for it. So now is not the time to think, what are they talking about investing at Rocklinc and the economy's tanking? Don't think like the world thinks. Don't think according to worldly wisdom. We've been called to take dominion always.
Especially when we're thinking of the boys over at Rocklinc, man. They trust me, they're plugged into what's going on. They will give you advice tailored to your needs in this hour. with everything in mind. Andrew, as the resident Ontarian, what's going on in Ontario in light of these tariffs that we're seeing?
So before I talk about that a little bit, I gotta put my tinfoil hat on a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay, go for it, Andrew.
Don't go to
give you
just
a
me.
long leash on this program.
Don't go to just me. Keep it you and I, so that people are see you and there's a balance to it. Okay. I'm connected with various provincial politicians and presidents of political parties, provincial ones, and so part of the work I've been able to do historically has given me relationships with people who have a little bit of an inside track as to what's going on. So in the spring, spring of 2024, summer of 2024, I was having two conversations with two people deeply involved in the kind of political sphere, telling me back in the spring of 2024 that almost certainly Doug Ford would be calling an election in early spring of 2025, that he would definitely be calling an election in the spring of 2025. Now, the reasons for it, that's a longer conversation. The long and the short of it was that there were certain things that the provincial Conservatives wanted to do, that it would be easier to do it having just won an election with a super majority, so no one could cast a vote of non-confidence.
Which is likely again.
Then it would be campaigning saying this is what we want to do, which means what they want to do actually isn't good stuff at all. So what they want to do is not going to be really great. So they know, let's go in with the majority. So that's one thing. The other thing is, the sources said it was an interplay between the federal and the provincial Conservatives, that in order for things to happen the way they needed to, and in order for not kind of bumping into one another and tripping over agendas, that the order had to be securing the Ontario provincial Conservative win first, and then the federal Conservative win second. So I share all of that to say
political machinations.
February 27th may not be early spring. It's pretty darn close to early spring. Yeah. And I'm not surprised by this, because the reliable people that I trust told me 8 months ago that this is precisely what to expect, that there's going to be a provincial election. So it just so happens that, convenient for Premier Ford, is now he has a reason to do it earlier than was expected. So it was supposed to be March, April, but now it's earlier. So all that to say, you saw in the clip that Trudeau mentioned his talking with Doug Ford, which, by the way, should alert voters in Canada. When Justin Trudeau says, "Oh yeah, my right-hand man, Dougie Ford,"
no kidding.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so he is a liberal. Like, let's be honest. Like that, you don't have a Conservative Party in Ontario.
No. So,
I mean,
here's in response, or using the tariffs as justification to do again what I think was the plan all along, just now gets to happen earlier. This is the big news at a press conference last week that old Dougie Ford has for Ontario.
Myself and many of my colleagues have it on good authority as of yesterday that you will be calling an election next Wednesday. I was hoping you could send us into the weekend with a little bit of certainty and tell us once and for all, will you be calling an election next Wednesday?
We will be calling the election next Wednesday. I'll be seeing the Lieutenant Governor on Tuesday. We need a mandate from the people to fight against Donald Trump's tariffs, the attack he's coming against our families, our businesses, our communities. And with a strong mandate, we will be able to fight with Donald Trump to make sure we stop the tariffs and make sure that we give certainty to the people of Ontario. It may take investing tens of billions of dollars. We'll do tens of billions of dollars. It's no different than during the pandemic. We'll make sure we secure people's livelihoods, and I will do whatever it takes to protect the people of Ontario, in turn, because we're the engine of Canada, protecting all Canadians. We will not back down.
Honestly, so he's pro Trudeau. anti-Trump, and he's our conservative. Yoicks!
So
sucks to be an Ontarian.
But like so I'm in the middle of putting together a video because I want to respond to it. I'm putting together a video of clips from the first month of COVID press conferences that Doug Ford did. And I'm putting this video together to release it soon as counter campaigning material to tell people this is not the guy you can vote for, because I want them to, because they've forgotten. I want them to remember. I want them to remember him coming before that podium every day saying 2 weeks, 2 more weeks, you're not listening, lockdowns, stay-at-home orders, essential businesses only. And I want people to remember that man.
Yeah.
And what he just said, similar to the article you read from CTV News, is just like we did in the pandemic. He said that.
Yeah.
Just like we
he's
did.
literally talking from Trudeau's playbook. A vote for Ford is a vote for Trudeau.
If it's going to take tens of billions of dollars, we'll do it. I'm like, wait, what? Whoa. What?
He choked. To be fair, though, he choked a little bit when before he said
Ontario,
it was going to take $10 billion. We'll do it.
So if Canada, it's funny, if Canada is the worst of the G7 nations, then if Ontario is the driving force of Canada, Ontario is actually the worst of the worst. And so people might not be aware of this, but prior to Kathleen Wynne being Premier of Ontario, the largest indebted sub-sovereign in the world was the state of California. Now, what does that mean? So sovereign nations, Canada, the United States, Mexico, Italy, a sub-sovereign is a smaller jurisdiction, a nation,
state.
Province, territory, state, right? I mean, even arguably a municipality could be a sub-sovereign. So any smaller county, right? Any smaller jurisdiction is a sub-sovereign. Now, California is bigger than Canada, just to give you perspective, population-wise.
Yeah.
Larger than Canada. I mean, it is the lefty belly of the beast mess, along with New York. California is the worst. I mean, California is, it's just the worst. It's the worst state in the union. It's awful. Now, during the Kathleen Wynne era, the province of Ontario. Now, keep in mind our size. We're not that big.
Well, population-wise, geographically, you're actually very big.
Yeah, geographically, we're gigantic. Yes. But population-wise, we're not that big. I mean, someone could fact-check me. I don't think we're bigger than 20 million. I think we're maybe 15 million people in Ontario, right?
Which
Toronto 7.
Comparatively to Canada is humongous, actually.
But still, Toronto's, I mean, 7 to 10 million. Ottawa's another 1. Windsor's a 500,000, London's a 500,000, Brampton. So even if we're 20 million people, the province of Ontario is the most indebted sub-sovereign in the world. In the world. And under the leadership of Doug Ford, it has only gotten significantly worse. We have widened the gap. Ontario is more in debt than California, and we're making the gap wider. And he's just said more money, more communism, more what Trudeau's doing.
Yeah.
And the truth is, because people are asleep, I think, and polls are showing that the provincial Conservatives will probably do better than the federal Conservatives, which is saying something. The provincial Conservatives.
The interesting part is, Andrew, you can talk to this better than I. I'm not an Ontario guy, so I don't know I think people there is no real alternative in Ontario as far as like provincial parties are concerned. Like the NDP was so bad the last time that they were in, like you're talking about, under Wynne, that I think people are just like, well, we're not going to do that again.
Liberal.
She was a liberal. Sorry. Yeah, that's right. In most places across the nation, liberals don't have any provincial support, especially out west. So she was a liberal. Yeah, they were so bad that there's a lot, like very little support. Like the liberals are virtually not effective. And then the NDP are also a party, I think, that has been mired in controversy, and they don't have, I think, a real shot at pushing back against the Conservative. So
there were two political parties in Ontario. There are two political parties in Ontario that I'm pretty sure they both existed pre-pandemic, but really came to the forefront during the pandemic, in part because their clear stance on mandates and lockdowns and freedom, and also because people who then would join or lead these parties were actually kicked out of caucus. They were once Conservatives removed from the Conservative Party, the provincial Conservatives. So this is the New Blue Party and the Ontario Party are the two provincial parties that their platforms are pretty good. I mean, the only Canadian political party that I think has a more biblical platform would be the Christian Heritage Party. I mean, the Ontario Party and the New Blue, their platforms are good. What they stand on is good. I mean, Belinda Carahalios, I know she took a lot of heat in Waterloo for defending Trinity Bible Chapel. So these are the alternatives. Now, we don't have time today, but I think we might have to have a discussion with some key people. I've reached out to some friends, including guys involved in politics, about maybe coming on the show to talk about Ontario, because at the end of the day, as much as the rest of the country despises this, Ontario is the engine of Canada. In many ways, Ontario is the engine in terms of what we drive, whether it's have the vast majority of the population centers in Canada. We kind of are, and as it goes with Ontario, so it goes with a lot of Canada. So what matters here, what happens here matters. But
there's no doubt about it.
Political parties that need to be discussed. Their platform's good, but there's some issues. But aside from that, this is bad. This is really bad. This is really bad for Ontario's in rough shape. I mean, our shipping is terrible. Our gas prices are I mean, there are some provinces that are better, like super woke BC is worse. They're worse than us. But Ontario is bad. Property taxes, real estate's bad. Shipping's bad. It's pretty. It's because we're so in debt. So this is a bad play. This is a bad play from Ford. When, again, like we said, if you compare this to the response from Danielle Smith, who is, I'm going to go to his inauguration, I'm going to meet with him, I'm going to talk with him. And Danielle Smith is not flexing like this. This is not going to go well. Like, Ontario is not going to win the battle against the United States.
No, it's. I don't think it's going to go well either, brother. And we can pray that. Well, again, this is, like I said, a crass political maneuver. So I just want everybody to understand, ideologically, Doug Ford is more aligned with Justin Trudeau than he is with Donald Trump. I mean,
he governed like Marxist during COVID. He governed like a Marxist. Period.
That's super obvious. And he's acting in the exact same way. It's amazing to me that that Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau seem to think they know a little bit more about economics, that they're a little bit more informed than Donald Trump in this situation. As far as business acumen goes, Trump obviously has them destroyed. But this is an important thing to see, because as Canada is in this difficult situation, we're not seeing our leaders lead as good under shepherds, caring for the Canadian people. We're seeing them position themselves politically. And this is what Doug is doing here, is he's trying to consolidate more power for their government in Ontario at an opportune moment. So what are we looking at here? We're June 2026 is
Yeah, so the June 2026 is when the next Ontario provincial election was scheduled.
Yeah.
But if he calls the election this coming Wednesday, then you have a 6-week period, right? So if you call the election on Wednesday, that's a 6-week period. Because that's the minimum.
They can do that in Canada. I
hate a
that,
minimum 6-week period.
Can we get rid of that politicians can just parties in powers can literally just call elections whenever they feel like it? That is a really stupid way to do government. Anyways, it's going to cost you guys billions of dollars.
If the province wants it,
maybe millions. Yeah.
If the province wants it, right? If you have the authority to call an election and the province wants it, then if you're built upon the will of the people, then give them what they want and you keep winning. I think it's shocking. I was shocked when, after 2 years of COVID tyranny, I was shocked that the Ontario Conservatives not only won, but they gained 8 seats. I could not believe it in 2022. I was dumbfounded.
We did that live stream.
Yeah, that blew my mind. That's where
we might have to do something like that again.
I don't know if I can take it, man. I don't know if I can take it.
Yeah, man.
Imagine if they win more seats. They'll probably win more seats, and I think that a lot of what happened in Ontario last election was in response to Trudeau. And I think that this upcoming election I think there's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of a response to Trudeau. Also, people are going to buy what Ford is selling, which is, in order to deal with what Trump's going to do, we need 4 years to outlast him, right? Because Trump can only serve 4 years. Well, technically, if the Congress actually puts forward the legislation that allows for a third term for a president, he might have 8 years if that passes. But aside from that, he's got 4 years. So if Doug Ford says, give me 4 years to be here past Donald Trump, I will lead Canada through this very tumultuous time. I think Ontarians are going to buy it, which is unfortunate. So we got to move on. We got to move on to cover stuff that, if you're currently watching
YouTube,
on YouTube, you're not gonna,
you can't get this if you want to watch this on YouTube.
Hold on. First, before we do that, though, we got to talk about our friends over at Sales Nexus, because that's for YouTube. Okay, so this message is for all the salespeople in the audience. Selling is hard work, but the rewarding part is the relationships that you build with your customers. The secret to success in sales is creating those relationships of trust everywhere you can. But too often we get buried in busy work, and the day goes by without enough real connection with customers. So I want you to take a look at Sales Nexus. Sales Nexus is built to help salespeople automate all the busy work and focus on customers that are ready for a relationship. Try Sales Nexus free for 30 days at salesnexus.com. And make sure that you tell them that we over at Liberty Dispatch sent you. That's salesnexus.com, 30 days free. Make sure you let them know that we sent you. Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us on all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list, or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com.